Hi there and welcome to this episode of the Pixel Fusion Show. I'm Lauren and today I've got Craig and Anton with me. And today we'll be talking about one of the most common questions we get from clients, and that is, I want to build an app.
Yeah, every single time.
Every single time.
Every single time.
Yeah, can you build us an app? The question.
And it's not really, can we build one?
Sure we can.
Should we build one?
Should we build one? And what do you, when you say app, and when I say app, are we actually talking about the same thing? You know, and that's the start of the conversation that we have with a lot of clients is actually understanding what kind of app they need and whether they do even need an app. You know?
Yeah, because a lot of people just think like, hey, got a cell phone, app on my cell phone, got a computer, that's a website, right?
Well, not always. And I think Anton's going to give us a bit of insight into that a bit later, right? Around your run-of-the-mill website being down one end of the spectrum, and maybe we could say that the other end of the spectrum is kind of your full-blown native app build on whatever platform or all platforms. But there is a progression, and depending on what you're after, what you're trying to achieve, and maybe what stage of your idea you're at, it might actually help you pick out what you need, either long-term or even just this is what you kind of need now. Maybe you'll need something different later, but this will be easier. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah, there's also evolution of that terminology itself. So if you ask me what is an app, last year I would give you a different answer.
That's true, it changes so quickly.
And so now I'm going to ask you, Anton, as one of our developers here, can you tell us and explain in layman's terms what a progressive app is, a web app, and a native app?
Right. So I guess we all know what a native app is. I'll give an example.
Uber,
for example, it's something that you install on your device, something that runs natively on your device. Obviously, we all know that. I think what's important here is that Uber, as a company, doesn't have a single app. It has two apps, at least, that run natively. One runs on Android, one runs on iOS. I think that's a very important difference. On the other hand, with websites, or actually with web apps, which are really, really smart websites, I think that's the easiest definition.
Go with that.
Give an example of a website, of a web app.
Slack?
Slack.com.
Slack.com?
Slack.com is a web app, and the difference between Slack.com and Slack is that you can access Slack.com using any device, any platform, as long as it has a web browser.
Yep.
So these days, web apps are getting more and more progressively smarter, which leads us to progressive web apps, which are the smartest of the smart websites, smartest of the web apps.
Top of the food chain.
Top of the food chain.
Okay.
What makes them progressive is that they are actually using the latest features that have been integrated into the web platform. Those features include GPS location, camera, or accessing your microphone, or accessing your fingerprint device.
That sounds like it's almost taking over the need for a native app in the first place.
Yeah, true that.
But is that actually the case? Like, you know, would you, now that you can build progressive web apps and you can build them inside the browser, I mean, does that mean we shouldn't be building native apps, or why would we suggest that we would build native apps?
Right, well, I can think of multiple reasons why you wouldn't go for a web app while you still can build a native app. One of those reasons is think of computationally intensive applications. Those are, for instance, your AR and VR.
Right.
Something that requires your computer to process, for instance, to process an image, for instance, 24 times a second and apply an effect and everything. It also applies to cases when your customer, your user, expects almost instant feedback, real-time feedback.
So wait, can I just put that into context here? So can we use like Instagram, if I'm editing video on Instagram, that's what we're talking about now. And the app is great because to be able to process it straight away, I needed to have it on my phone so the processing speed can be faster. Is that right?
Yeah, we can also use a lot of features of Instagram. If you go to Instagram.com, whether you're using a laptop or your mobile device.
I guess the important thing there is that you were talking about performance, right? So with a native app, your writing, your code is one or two steps away from the actual chips and the integrated coding that's on the devices themselves. So there's very little kind of like layers of translation that has to go from the code you write to the access to the actual feature that you need, like the camera or the 3D processor or the microphone, that kind of stuff. The graphics card, yeah.
Each phone is a graphics card.
Whereas with a browser, you write your code, it talks to some other code, it talks to the browser's code, which talks to the SDK and the operating system, which then talks to another bit of code, but then it talks to the device. And then that response, or however you want to talk about it, the message or the stream of information has to then come filtered back up to your browser. So you've got like a whole bunch more layers of abstraction. So the performance can be a bit janky if it's really important that you have that kind of instant feedback, right?
Yeah. And if you think about it, a web browser itself is a native app.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you build a web app, you're actually building an extension for a native app.
Didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And well, speaking of limitations, of other limitations, if you think that a website is something so versatile that can be accessed using any platform, well, to begin with, that platform, that operating system needs to run a web browser. It also needs to run a web browser that supports all those, new and hot features that we're talking about here, whether it's access to geolocation or other things. So the only reason why PWAs, progressive web apps, exist today is thanks to those evergreen web browsers. Those are Chrome and Safari these days.
So what does evergreen mean?
Evergreen means it's always green, means it gets updated automatically. So for instance, remember back in the day you had to update your Windows, you had to install Service Pack 1.
Or download a new version of Internet Explorer, so literally install over the top, yeah?
Right.
I've forgotten about that. Now we never have to think about it, it just happens.
People like us, we can never forget Internet Explorer. Never. To the day we die. We'll be like, trigger us in some kind of response, and you have to support Internet Explorer 6.
Those were when like Safari was cool.
Safari
everybody's into Chrome now, but it's like Internet Explorer or Safari, right?
Yeah. Let's not talk about Safari. Anyway, back on track. So
your platform needs to run an evergreen web browser for you to be able to access a web app that is capable of doing those multiple things. So those evergreen browsers are Chrome and Safari these days, and Microsoft Edge is also one of those evergreen web browsers.
What about Mozilla?
Oh yeah, Firefox as well. Yeah. Like I was saying, the only reason why we have those PWAs today and not 10 years from now is because of those evergreen web browsers that get to integrate the implementation of all the web technological standards that have been standardized and normalized.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting technically, and as a product development company, that's really interesting. It opens up a lot of opportunities for us, right? But that's not how we'd explain it to a client, right? Because they'd be like, "Wow, that's really interesting," but that doesn't necessarily help us kind of hone down on what we need. So we talk about some other ways, right? I mean, one way that we try and define is why does it need to be an app? What are we actually trying? What's your objective? What's
for
the client's
example,
objective?
I come to you. I'm like, Craig, you're founder of this amazing company. Like,
no, I'm not giving you a discount.
I've got this idea. Hey, relationships, man.
Maybe a small discount.
I just made you a coffee. So I come to you and I've got this idea and I say, I have this preconceived idea that I want to make an app because I want it to be accessible on my phone and I want it to be easy to just roll out, but I don't have a lot of money and I'm not sure if my idea is going to work. Walk me through that process. Like, what would you say to me?
Yeah, so I mean, put aside the fact that clients hardly ever tell you how much money they have, but regardless of whether you are being asked because you're a service provider or you're being asked because maybe you're someone who's going to get involved in a startup and you're not getting paid to do it, you're doing it for the love of it or because you want to get involved in the business idea.
Yep.
That's where we start to get some really interesting decision opportunities around whether you go straight to a native app. You might decide like down the track, once you've like validated that your idea is likely going to work, or you need to take advantage of more of those things like the app ecosystem, the app store, the app stores themselves, etc., etc. While you're still validating, it can be a lot cheaper to build in web technologies, for example. So that's always a really good thing, and we can iterate on it quickly. You don't have to worry about the app store. It's easier to find developers who can build web apps, progressive web apps. It's becoming more of a standard these days, right? Like everyone in here knows how to build progressive web apps, right?
Yeah. However, you can't find a developer with a 10 years experience in progressive web apps.
That's true. That is one gotcha, isn't it? Yeah. Whereas you can find some pretty seasoned veterans who have been building apps for there's different ways to build native apps these days. Even if you do, you kind of go down this kind of logic tree of what are you trying to do? Okay, next step. You find that out, okay, and then you go split. It's like native or web. If you do end up finding yourself down the native route, some of those questions still kind of come back and go, okay, well, what is it about the device itself? How important are certain things that you need?
And you also mentioned that it's easier and it's cheaper to get your web app out there to your customer than if your product was a native app. I think what's important here is the cheaper, the easier it is for you to get it out there, the easier it is for you to support it, the easier it is for you to roll out changes to it.
Quicker as well, quicker to iterate, right? You can test new hypotheses and different things.
And it's also easier for the user, right? Like if I don't have to go to the Play Store, the App Store to download anything, I can just go onto my browser.
Well, especially when you're trying to validate your idea, like if you're trying to get it out, let's say you want to run a particular experiment and do some user testing on a particular UX concept, right? So rather than trying to get 10 people or 100 people or whomever to download an app and it will sign up to test flights or whatever the case might be and distribute it somehow, you can send them a link and say, log in here, and away you go, right? And you can use a lot of the other technologies that we're able to use in other other web development projects, like Hotjar and other things that actually give you some really useful analytics on the use of the app. So it's faster, it's easier. Like I said, there's more available resource. By resource, I mean skilled people who can actually make that happen for you. So the path of it's kind of like a path of least resistance, right? So it's really good, especially for people who are starting up or creating a new idea, or even if you work inside a corporate or a business. That doesn't mean that you have to do things a certain way. There's no reason why. There's no rule that says you can't do things faster and trial things in a way that's like prototype quality or whatever the case might be. Because the last thing your company wants you to do is waste a whole bunch of money developing something, stamping it and saying this is perfect, releasing it out to the world and haven't gone through the due process. The thing about having an app is that it's sitting there on your phone. If you need something instantly, like think about Uber, right? You walk out the pub or maybe stumble out the pub. You unlock your phone using your face and it somehow picks up the fact that it's you even though you're half eyes half closed or whatever the case might be. Unless you're sensible, like I am always.
Being a lady.
Oh yes, of course. Then it's like bang, it opens. There's no kind of find the browser, open the browser, type in the URL, which I mean Uber hopefully is still reasonably easy if you've had a few drinks, but that whole process is kind of taken away. So like in your example with a company that wants to make it easy for their customers to order something from them.
Yeah, to reorder.
So is it really important you can do it straight away right there in that context? Or is it something that you could just you can make a note of it and go back to your desk, or even if you still want to do it on your phone because you're a mobile first company, is it a big deal then to open up a browser and type it in? So it's really kind of like your context. Yeah, like Instagram, if you had to open a browser, go to Instagram,
But that's
log into
how I like to use Instagram, Craig.
I've seen you use Instagram. That's not how you use Instagram. But yeah, the moment's lost, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely like an instantaneousness about install apps. Now you can technically get around that, right?
Yeah, we're not quite used yet to adding certain websites to your home screen. But what you can do, for instance, with Twitter.com is once you head into your home screen, you can then, since Twitter.com is a progressive web app, you can even use it offline.
That's true.
Yeah, because we're all used to seeing or typing some URL and then you're offline. Whether you're online or offline, when you go to Twitter.com, you always see something. So that is something that is possible because of progressive web app technologies. Secondly, going back to your example of a user that wants to use Google right here, right now, but they want instantaneous feedback. It must have happened to you that you open your app and it goes, oh, you need to update this app. It can't function unless you update it.
Yeah.
So you need to go to your app store and then update. You often end up updating all your apps.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, at the same
Never
time.
done it.
But if you go to Uber.com, or if you click on your bookmark that's on your home screen that opens up Uber.com, you always get the latest version of the app.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm just coming back to my point that it's so much easier to roll out additions or changes or bug fixes to your app when your product is a web app. And you also get to experiment more. And your customer may be changing, they're evolving themselves. They might be a growing audience that need to now have sort of different features for.
That's right. You can run more experiments.
Yeah.
Right, more
You're
freely.
not limited at all. Yeah, and all the technologies that web developers or web data analysts are used to be using, for instance, Google Analytics or Hotjar or Google Optimize. They're all suitable for web apps and for progressive web apps. Well, these days they're also suitable for installable apps as well. So we see sort of evolution. So we see evolution in each world.
So it'll be interesting to see, as progressive web apps progress. Total pun intended.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what we can do, and because the devices themselves are getting more and more powerful as well, right?
Yes.
So I mean, that issue around latency of delving through the layers of abstracted code and all that kind of jazz is becoming less of an issue. Would you say? But I don't know. I think there'll always be a place for me for native apps. Especially for more advanced things. Doing AR kind of stuff on top of walls or on desks. The platforms try and make it really easy to develop that inside the ecosystem. But
I guess bringing it back to the original question was, now that we know what they are, how do I know which one to use? It comes down to so many variables.
It does.
You really need to have someone that knows. It's like going to the doctor, for example. You have the symptoms, you know what your outcome is, but you don't necessarily know all the little details of what's causing that, or you don't really know the plan going forward on how you're going to achieve that. And the doctor will give you that prescription out to you, and he will come up with a plan for you. It's kind of the same thing when you're trying to build a product, whether you're a startup or whether you're in an enterprise and you decide to innovate or roll out a new app, for example. You should always go to someone like us,
the people you trust, your internal team, your technical co-founder. I think it's really important to have. We talk about it all the time. Is not coming into a room with a solution already in mind. I mean, it's natural to do that, right? And you have an idea, but it's about having a concept loosely held around how it might be solved, but actually being more interested in coming to a more suitable solution through working it out with other people.
Discovering it together.
Yeah, discovering it together and looking at all the options. So not just like going, no, native app, 2 platforms, away we go. And when it's like, well, okay.
Actually, maybe a native app's not the way for you. A progressive app is, or vice versa. Or actually, you know what? You just need a brochure website.
One really important question, which is interesting, is who's using this app. Now you've got your customer, but then is your customer then going to do something that tries to get other people into the system too? Like maybe it's a collaboration, or like maybe a simple thing would be like a don't bang the table, like a sign-off app. Imagine an application where let's say there's an application where you've had a conversation, you want to summarize the outcome of that conversation, and you want to be able to capture that everyone agrees to that. Now you want to be able to do that really easily on your phone as you're walking out the meeting, right? And then you want to add the email addresses or whatever handles or however you're going to communicate, and have that sent out. Now if they aren't using the same app as you to do that, when that link goes into their email box or their Slack channel, do they have to click that and then download an app just so they can log in and then approve your request? Or would it be better to have them just be able to launch a browser, gets the minimum amount of details for them and does the job that it needs to do right there and then?
Yeah, and I want to go with that one, except when I think of Slack, before I actually downloaded the Slack app, I just used it online. So I didn't have to download anything.
Half of our clients did that.
Yeah, so it's equally as quick. And in that way, Slack is a native app as well as a progressive app.
Yeah, so they've gone the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So
they're across the spectrum.
But they would have built the progressive one first and then moved over to the native app, or do you know?
I'm actually not entirely sure.
Don't know.
I couldn't say for sure.
Interesting one, yeah.
If
you know the answer, let us know.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
I think it's very likely that they've done both at the same time, because the way your installable app works, it is actually a web browser.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
I thought it was just wrapped.
The technology that they use called Electron, which I think is similar to how Facebook and Instagram native installable, I should say, applications are developed. That gives you sort of additional layer of agility, and at the same time achieving both the native app and a progressive web app.
Yeah. So one code base, lots of install paths.
Which is similar to React Native. However, when you use React Native, you still end up producing
platform-specific
artifacts, platform-specific installables.
So just before we end off here, I heard you say wrapped, and now I feel like I need to, for those out there as well, in my shoes, what does it mean to wrap an app?
Well, it's when you talk at a very fast speed to like a beat in the background about your app. It's a good marketing.
Can you give us a demonstration of that?
No, I have like this much. What's the word? Self-dignity left after all these years, so I'll not do that.
But basically, what my understanding of that was, I can take an app off a progressive web app, and I can wrap it and put it on my computer so that it can, I use Mac and iOS, I can then access it like it would be an app.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Think about it. Every installable application needs to access the internet for you to be able to log into it. It's pretty much a given. You have to think Uber and other things. So why wouldn't it spin up a browser, a web view? There are other nuances and terms for it. That just opens up their website, their web app.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I used to use this app called Fluid, and it was basically an application you could download for free on the Mac, and you could create a new Fluid app, and it would just give you a URL address or a bar for it, and then you basically copy and paste your favorite app. Like I used to use it for Xero. So rather than having to open Chrome, open up a new tab, I hate bookmark bars, so I know everyone's like, why don't you use a bookmark bar? But I don't do that. Anyway, and then going Xero.com and logging in, right? I just have my Fluid app set to the login page of Xero. It's on my dock, I just press it, boop, just loads up, right?
Yes, that's what I need.
And so that's been around for a long time. That's basically just a browser with no toolbar, no URL bar, launching a fixed URL. And I guess, in a layway, the Slack app, for example, is just they've done that and then put it on the App Store, right? I mean, it's more complex than that, but generally speaking, that's the way. And so you can still achieve Now, if you think about what you want to achieve, and in those early days of trying to test your idea, when you want to make that jump from going, okay, right, we want to see how this concept plays in the app stores, whether it's, or whatever, all the platforms.
Yeah.
There are some tricks where you don't have to throw away. You have to go, well, thank you, web code, thank you for your service, and throw it out. Marie Kondo style. You can actually still use that for a few more tests. I mean, you might even just use it all the way through.
Yeah, like Slack does.
Or you might make the decision, okay, we need to
make it a bit more performant.
Take it in a different direction, and it really makes sense that we have a quote unquote a bona fide installable app for various reasons, right?
So, Craig, next time I walk into your office, I'm not going to ask you for a website or an app. I'm just going to tell you what my problem is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to trust you to diagnose it with differential diagnosis, and we'll walk through this path on what the best options are. And then, Anton, you can build that for me, right?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the important thing there is, like you say, is come in and talk to the person that you want to help you with this. Your trusted, whoever it is, your partner, your agency of choice, your studio of choice, your internal team. Just talk about what you want to be able to achieve, who you're trying to achieve it for, what their context is that they're going to be solving this problem in. Is it, out there on the street as they're walking towards something? Is it, back at their desk, it's a bit more relaxed? Is it they've got to be real quick, to capture that moment or take advantage of something? Or is it, on their own time? And those are the kind of things that you can kind of talk through, and that person should be able to kind of narrow down in their head the best way forward for you at the point that you're at.
You got that? That was actually a huge discussion. Thank you
so
much
for
coming on today.
I learned a lot. I think of our realization about Slack.
Yeah.
We had to realize the history and pretty much understand their decision making.
Yeah.
What made them successful.
Yeah, well, a lot of things. But I'm sure that technical choice was one of them.
Let's just keep it simple. So if you enjoyed this conversational episode with us this week, you can find everything on the Pixel Fusion blog next Tuesday. And we do this every Friday. If you have any interesting topics you'd like us to discuss, or if you would like to come and be on the show with us, let us know in the comments, or you can email me at lauren@pixelfusion.com. Lauren@pixelfusion.com.
How long have you been here? No wonder we're not going to Funny story.
Yes.
There is a pixelfusion.com.
Yes.
It is a website development company based in America.
It's true.
And guess who the founder's name is? Craig. Same as me, in New Zealand. What are the chances? There's another Craig in the world.
Yeah.
And he runs a web development company too.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a Craig, you're much more likely to start a development company. And the odds are it's called Pixel Fusion.
Actually, Craig, if you're watching this, hey man.
Hey.
We should chat sometime.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for inviting us on. It was fun.
Thank you. Yeah, loved it.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.